Hey guys, what is going on? I hope you all are doing well today. Elliot here and welcome back to The Fragrance Well. So as you know, one of the top fragrance categories or categorizations of fragrances is going to be office scents. These are fragrances that we think are friendly for the office. They maybe have some sense of professionality to them. Maybe they're just simply easy to wear, easy to like, nothing that's too out there, so to speak. Maybe something that's not too strong. But we all, if you've been in the community for a while, you might have an idea of what kind of fragrances fit that bill. We're gonna go outside of that box. These are the most non-office fragrances that maybe I would wear to the office environment. Now, where you work might be different, so it can vary depending on where you work. If you work outside, obviously you got a little bit more freedom, so to speak, in what you choose to wear. But if you're enclosed in an office environment, you definitely have to be a little bit more cognizant, especially if you're working close to people. If you're working with clients, that can maybe change it what you might wear. But anyway, that's today's video topic. I got 8 fragrances here that I consider to be some of the most non-office scents that I would wear to the office. We're gonna talk about them in just a second, but before we do, don't forget to like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you like the content. If you do subscribe, remember to hit that bell icon so you can be notified when I upload new videos, at least most of the time. All right, let's get into it. All right, guys, first up, we got one from the House of Nishane, and this is gonna be Fan Your Flames. Nishane's Fan Your Flames. So, if you know anything about this fragrance, this is primarily a tobacco fragrance, but it has quite a bit of a pretty strong rum and coconut combination, so it does kind of have a bit of a boozy quality to it, very tropical boozy quality to it. Again, a lot of tobacco. There's also a lot of cedar wood. There's some oak moss in this as well, so it kind of has a dry feel to it, but overall the fragrance vibe is not really that of an office environment. But I've actually worn this to work before, so this one I've actually done. This is not just theoretical for me. I've worn this one to work. The thing about this one is you just dial the sprays back. I mean, in general, when you're wearing an office scent, in my opinion, if it's an indoor environment, you just don't need to go that heavy on the sprays. You can pretty much wear almost whatever you want. Some might be pushing it a little bit, but most of us probably don't even have fragrances that would fit into that category. So this one here, I've actually worn to work. You just dial the sprays back, particularly because it has that boozy quality to it. This is why I would consider it not a fragrance you typically would wear to the office. More of a night out fragrance, more of a hanging out fragrance, somewhere I'd wear to, maybe a cigar lounge, something like that. But yeah, Nishane's Fan Your Flames, that's the first one on the list today. Not your typical office fragrance, but you can pull it off. Next up, coming from the House of Mancera, this is Red Tobacco. Mancera's Red Tobacco. Now, this fragrance is certainly not unknown for the vast majority of the community, and I think most would agree it's not the first thing you would go to if you're going for an office safe scent, let's just call it that. Again, depending on your work environment, it might not be that big of a deal, but if you're working in a traditional office environment, yeah, this is not going to be the first choice. This is a tobacco fragrance that has a lot of sweet accords to it, definitely has some oriental touches to it, a little bit fruity in the top, but also very strong spicy note of saffron. That's what I think makes this a little bit tough in the opening, a little bit forward, if you will, a little bit invasive, and that's the primary reason why people probably wouldn't think of this as an office fragrance. And I do agree with that sentiment. However, who says you can't wear it, particularly if you dial the sprays back? Also, because the opening on this one is thought of to be the kind of challenging part of the fragrance, I would say spray it lightly and spray it well before you're actually at the office. Maybe 45 minutes to an hour before you're at the office if you think it's going to be offensive to somebody. So yeah, Mancera's Red Tobacco, definitely not your typical office fragrance, but I think it can be pulled off. You just, go light on the sprays, maybe just one. All right, next one's coming from the House of Nasamato. This is Black Afgano. Nasamato Black Afgano. So most people, I think, are familiar with the big, the idea of this fragrance being kind of representative of hashish, a variety of hashish, which is essentially, a resin made from marijuana plants, cannabis plants, so to speak. So this one is thought to have kind of a cannabis vibe to it. It's kind of there. Honestly, I think when you really kind of get familiar with the fragrance, you don't notice it so much, or you don't experience it in a way where people might smell it and think like, oh my gosh, he's been smoking weed, so to speak. The fragrance does not come across that way. However, it does kind of have that kind of quality to it in a way, and maybe if someone's familiar with the actual hashish this is meant to replicate or represent, maybe that could be a thing. So anyway, the whole point is, because that's the overall vibe of the fragrance, it's definitely not thought of as an office scent. So I would say be careful with this one, but I do think it can be pulled off. A little goes a long way with the fragrance. You don't need a ton of sprays of this. I mean, it's a 30 ml bottle. That's kind of the whole idea, is you don't have to spray it a ton of times. But I love the way this smells. I love the resinous quality of this. I definitely love the smoky woodiness, kind of dry woodiness quality that this fragrance has. And also when it dries down, it actually gets kind of sweet. It's not, overly sweet, but it gets really nice when it dries down. But yeah, a little goes a long way with this one. And if you're worried about, potentially getting in trouble with a fragrance like this, then don't wear it. That's the whole point of this video. Non-office scents. I would not consider this an office fragrance, so wear with caution, but hey, it's perfect for this type of list. So once again, from the House of Nasamado, this is Black Afgano. All right, so the next one's coming from Fragrance World. This is Star Men Nebula. Fragrance World, Star Men Nebula. This fragrance is a clone of Mugler's Pure Malt. So this one might be kind of surprising if you've been watching my channel for a while, because I don't really feature too many clone fragrances. And it's not that I'm against clones, I just don't generally have an interest in them. But I did want to get this one because the chance of me getting Mugler's Pure Malt is pretty low, maybe even remote. So I figured, hey, I'll go ahead and grab this because I don't think I'm going to experience Pure Malt otherwise. I unfortunately never got to experience the original. I was able to get Pure Van, but honestly, I got lucky with that. So I very well acknowledged that, and I figured, hey, I've heard this one's pretty close to Pure Malt, so I'll grab it. But yeah, this one definitely got that malt-like smell to it. Definitely a boozy, very sweet fragrance. This one in general, I don't think it's necessarily hard to wear. It just definitely does not fit into that office scent vibe. It's almost inappropriate in a way. Depending on where you work, if you know your coworkers, it might be fine. But if you go in with this one, especially spraying it kind of loud, and you don't know how people might receive it, it would definitely be a bold choice, so to speak. Definitely far from safe. So the fragrance in general, it just doesn't fit that traditional mold, which is the whole point of this video. Definitely more of a night out kind of fragrance, a little bit youthful, a little bit juvenile. But overall, the fragrance I do think does smell nice, but again, easy on the trigger with it. To be fair, I haven't given this a full wear yet, but I can tell you definitely wouldn't want to spray this heavily if you're going to wear it to work. So once again, from Fragrance World, this is Star Men Nebula. All right, guys, next one's coming from the House of Arabian Oud. This is Blue Oud. Arabian Oud, Blue Oud. Now, let me just say this. The House of Arabian Oud has some amazing fragrances that are great for the office, if not ideal for the office. So it's not so much a focus on the house. It's just this one in general. You wouldn't really think of this as an office fragrance, obviously, because I don't think anyone would consider oud an office-friendly fragrance note, particularly when it's the feature of the fragrance. And in this case, it's the only thing really in the fragrance. However, the fragrance does have this classiness to it. In particular, I think with this one, if you simply don't overspray it, it could work. It might depend on the office environment. Certainly would depend on who you're working with. I would also say, this one to me does not really have animalic qualities unless you overspray it. And even if you do, it's going to be in the beginning of the fragrance wear. So another one you might want to let dry down a bit before you go into the office, just to be safe. Because, you don't want to go into work being off-putting to everybody. At least I wouldn't want to do that. But I do think the fragrance, once it dries down, that kind of goes away and you get all the qualities that this fragrance has, and therefore great office scent, especially if you're in an office environment where people are a little bit more dressy. Another note on this, I forgot to bring it in here, so I'm not going to worry about going to get it, but if you have the raw oud oil for this, maybe just that might even be better. 2 dabs, if not one, around one of the pulse points or maybe in the middle of the chest. It would be perfect for that, because that in essence does not have as much projection as say the fragrance itself does, and you maybe just have a nice scent cloud and therefore it wouldn't be too overwhelming. Just a tip, just a thought. So once again, from the House of Arabian Oud, this is Blue Oud. All right, next one's coming from the House of Chanel. This is Le Lion de Chanel. Le Lion de Chanel. So this is another one. First of all, a little goes a long way with this. You don't need a ton, but overall, the fragrance category, or many would categorize it, should I say, as a night out, evening wear fragrance, especially for like an elegant situation. That's where, you know, it kind of fits the best. But if you really love the scent DNA like I do, I would certainly wear it for other occasions. And I think this one can be worn to work if you go light on the sprays. And I do mean light on the sprays, because this one definitely projects very well. It's going to be a very spicy, resinous fragrance, some very deep earthy notes, a little bit of a leathery vibe to it. Definitely not what you would consider the typical office fragrance. And again, a little goes a long way. So, you know, be careful with this one. You know, it really projects. I'm serious. It projects very nicely. Definitely needs a nice sillage as well. So this one could just be overwhelming if nothing else if you overspray it. So yeah, definitely a non-traditional office fragrance, but I do think it can work. And once it dries down, you know, a little bit of the roughness that it has does settle a bit, but it stays resinous and leathery throughout the entire wear. Once again, from the House of Chanel, this is Le Lion de Chanel. All right, next one's coming from the House of Amouage. We've got Interlude Black Iris. Amouage, Interlude Black Iris. Similar to Le Lion de Chanel, it's pretty much kind of the same scent profile. Not the same scent profile, but same scent category in that it's smoky, resinous, spicy, woody, kind of earthy. This one does have some added freshness to it with a pretty heavy note of orris or iris, so to speak. This is a flanker to the original Interlude, which does not have that. So you could consider this the fresher version of Interlude. Either way, you definitely wouldn't consider this to be your traditional office scent DNA. Very powerful fragrance. Also another one where a little goes a long way. But I chose this one over the original Interlude because ironically, I think that iris could still fit a little bit better for an office fragrance, which kind of goes against what the category was, but also I just wanted to give this one some shine. I don't talk about this one as much. I actually like the original Interlude better, but this one is definitely excellent as well. Either way, if you want to wear a fragrance to the office that definitely does not fit into that traditional office fragrance mode, this one will do it. So once again, from the House of Amouage, this is Interlude Black Iris. All right, guys, last but not least, we got one from the House of Bentley. This is For Men Absolute. Bentley For Men Absolute. So this here, this one's just not going to be for everybody, first of all. It does kind of have a little bit of a mature vibe to it. It is quite spicy, has a little bit of a BO kind of like spice to it if you don't like that type of spice. Kind of like what cumin would give you. I don't know if there's cumin in this. I don't think there's cumin in this. Maybe there is. But if you don't like that type of spice profile, you're not going to like this fragrance anyway. But the big thing with this one is it's definitely not that traditional office vibe, but it does have a very nice classiness to it. Honestly, if you work in an environment where people are a little bit more suited and booted, so to speak, dressed up, this fragrance actually would probably work very well for that environment, especially if you're working with a lot of older guys, so to speak. But the fragrance does have that mature vibe to it. But everybody else and the traditional office fragrance, this one's not going to fit into that mold. It is thought of as more of a very elegant evening wear fragrance. You know, like I said, resinous, spicy, smoky, very woody. And again, just not one that's going to appeal to everybody. However, I think the fragrance is gorgeous. But if you do want to wear a fragrance that does not fit into that traditional office vibe, this one will certainly do it. So once again, this is Bentley's For Men Absolute. All right, guys, that's gonna do it for this video. That was 8 fragrances that I would consider to be non-office friendly scents, but I would still wear them to the office. Let me know down in the comments below. I'm pretty sure everybody's got fragrances that they probably have worn to work that would not be considered office friendly scents, because who said you had to wear an office friendly fragrance to work? That would be ridiculous. I appreciate you guys watching all the way until the end. Remember to be well and smell well, and I will see you in the next episode of The Fragrance Well. Have a good one.